What's up, family? I apologize, got a little bit of a cold today. Been traveling a ton and holidays and all that, and I've been just a little bit under the weather, but been having some great conversations, and I've been about, as you've told me on Twitter, maybe 15 days late on a podcast. Not late per se, but man's been busy. What are you going to do? Had a great dinner with Carlos the other night, and then bounced out to New York, and the whole Caveman team is out here. And just had a great podcast last night with Troy Denning, who owns Invisible NYC, which is a tattoo shop down there on the Lower East Side. And he's over there by my friend Gavin Van Black's place. And at any rate, we had a long time talk, old jiu-jitsu head, original like old school Health Gracie guy, and then he moved out to the East Coast and been out in New York for a long time and built a name as one of the finest tattoo artists in the city. Old school Japanese stuff, and now he's just moving on to some other things, and we talk about all that. And Keith and I, and Lacie jumps in a little bit, and Dudian's down there. Josh Brown is with us, so we got the whole crew down and kind of took over Invisible NYC in one room, and Troy was nice enough to host us all. Great conversation, and I really appreciate the time to open the shop to us and all that. So that's who's on the podcast today, and with no further ado, Troy Denning, Keith Jardine, and myself. And cut. And hey, everybody. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Had a great conversation, and I really appreciate it, and Caveman Coffee appreciates it. If you appreciate it, come check us out at Caveman Coffee. We got some great hats out there. Everybody's asking me, where do you get that PX hat? Where do you get that CC beanie? That you've been seeing on my Instagram, and all that stuff's available at Caveman Coffee. We're also doing a bit of filming, and we're putting a little bit of a show together to make this a little more interactive. So you can find me on YouTube at Tait Fletcher, just TAITFLETCHER. You search my name for my YouTube channel, and there'll be a lot of neat stuff coming up, and we'll be adding to that pretty regularly. Also, nuevocerveza.com, of course. Concrete Cowboy. I'm going to be out in Dallas, I guess in like 2 weeks. We'll be out there. We'll be opening Concrete Cowboy Houston the 21st of January, 2016. Be there, be square, and should be an awesome fucking time and a new epoch in the nightlife of Houston, Texas. Pardon me. Also, I want to thank the Float Clinic down in Torrance, and I can't wait to get back. I want to start making that a practice like twice a week in my life, just for enhanced meditation practices and just getting centered in a different aspect that I've been doing. I've been really remiss in that. Been looking into a lot of that stuff just as far as transcendental experiences and calming and how to better function in my brainstem and all that kind of stuff. So again, you can find us at cavemancoffee.com. Look to Concrete Cowboy. You look to Dallas, Austin, Texas, and Houston, Texas, and we're throughout there. And it's a great little hub in the city. If you want to come stop in, say hello, please. And bunch of thanks to my partners there, Dan Werk and Rico Taylor and John Vels. And those guys really make it happen out there. So again, thank you for joining the podcast, and thanks for tuning in to Pirate Life Radio. All about how to reincorporate goodness, greatness, and fun back into your life. And, book coming soon is what they say. So enjoy that, and we'll talk soon.
A big Tait Fletcher.
Powerful Tait Fletcher.
Is a real alpha male.
Weightlifter.
He's a stuntman.
Movie star. Robust, enthusiastic individual.
He's huge, by the way. He's like a monster person.
One of the sweetest guys I know.
He's bigger than life.
Actor.
Entrepreneur.
Fighter.
The jiu-jitsu technician.
He's also bald, and he has all these tattoos. He's just a big fucking man.
A man, a myth, a legend.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher.
What's up, Tait Fletcher, you fat motherfucker?
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher is
Tait Fletcher.
Teddy Bear. Motherfucking Fletcher, ladies and gentlemen.
That's Tait Fletcher, everybody.
The great Tait Fletcher, Tait the animal Fletcher, Tait the savage Fletcher, always moving. There's no stillness with Tait Fletcher. You will find no dust.
Tait Fletcher's in the house, ladies and gentlemen. He just said the word erection.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher's in the fucking house.
Tait Fletcher!
Tait really blasts out some serious hardcore truth bombs, and I think you're really going to enjoy it.
Hey,
What's up?
welcome everybody. This is Tait Fletcher and Troy Danny, Keith Jardine, and Pirate Life Radio. And Troy, it's goddamn a pleasure to meet you. I've been trying to do a podcast with you, I think, for maybe 2 years now.
Likewise.
And really,
awesome surprise.
Really, really cool. We're here at Invisible Tattoo and
Caveman Coffee.
Just up at on Coffee and just in New York City for a short time, and I'm glad we're making it happen.
Yeah, me too as well.
Yeah, friends in common, like old school hardcore guys. You've been around the city for a long time.
Yeah, all those worlds kind of converge, I guess. But I was surprised that you knew a lot of, Aaron also?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
Aaron and I were, we were like brothers for years. We boxed together for a long time, and but yeah, those worlds all kind of.
Yeah. And then one of your dudes here is
it's like a
crazy
roommate of one of
Casey.
the caveman guys.
Which is awesome. Casey just told me that today. I was like, no way.
Yeah. Water finds its own level, I guess, and people of like mind and the same interests always kind of intersect with each other.
Especially
at some
now
point.
with the internet, it seems like more and
it's
more and
even
more.
easier for that. And the longer your timeline is, the more likely those things kind of connect to each other.
Sure.
Like a lot of guys that maybe we knew as teenagers that ain't around anymore. Yeah. They kind of fall off. But if you kind of stick around, everybody kind of starts meeting again.
Yeah, either they get dead or they get married.
Yeah.
It seems
prison, dead.
Yeah,
a lot of those. But yeah.
How long have you had the shop, man?
I've had the shop now like over 10 years, like almost 11 years.
Right on.
I've been in New York since '99, and tattooing 22 years. So I started in San Francisco.
Crazy. What brought you to New York?
My girlfriend at the time was going to grad school, and San Francisco just seemed kind of played out. It just seemed like it was one of those situations where I could always go back. So I figured, we came out here for her orientation, and the shop that I wanted to work at, that was like, I thought that maybe if I came out here, I would have to like kind of do it step by step and eventually work there. They offered me a job like within an hour of walking in there. So I was like, all right, this is pretty good.
In America, is New York the birthplace of tattooing? Because it kind of is between here and San Francisco, then, wouldn't it be?
Coney Island, yeah. Well, really well done tattooing is San Francisco, because that was with
There's like Ed Hardy and Hardy, Grime now is kind of
and all that whole tattoo renaissance that took place like in the early 90s when I started. It was already like late 80s, early 90s, and Ed Hardy was the progenitor of that. Like he's the one that started doing all the publications and books and everything, and like exposing people to high quality tattoos where like he really raised the bar, because you couldn't just be some shit merchant and have his publications in your shop and then people would be like, well, why can't you do stuff like this? Right. So he elevated everybody. They had to either raise their level or just like try to keep their clientele completely in the dark.
Yep.
So, but New York is New York. At the time I moved here, it was already on the way. It had just become legal, I think, in '97, which it wasn't illegal as far as you can get arrested, but it was really as having a business license, having a location that you actually said like tattoo shop.
Right.
You were leaving yourself open for a lot of discrimination and a lot of health code violations and stuff like that.
Yeah, the medical laws and stuff surrounding that.
It was difficult to get a commercial lease and all that kind of stuff. People still tattooed here, but it wasn't. The only people it really punished with it becoming legal, it made it easier for less scrupulous people to get into the business.
Right.
Because before, that just meant that you could just have a staff. All you needed is the basic guidelines and a sterilization area, and then you could just bring a bunch of third world, tattooers in and don't pay them hardly anything, and just just run like a tattoo sweatshop type of situation, which like on St. Mark's and Sixth Avenue and stuff like those areas for a long time were just like that, just like really bad, no real morality to it.
What's the worst thing that you ever saw? Like, as far as like that, like any shop opening, like diseases, like staph infections, and like what's the worst?
I've seen a lot of really
shit that like happens in that kind of worst case scenario.
Well, but I've seen photos. I've seen customers send me photos of stuff that it had more to do with, I think, just improper application. But you see, like, at those hood shops, like in the Bronx and stuff, or even like in Brooklyn, where it's just dudes, just like the blind leading the blind, and they're tattooing these, guys on the projects, and the guys are just getting, those guys have like a tendency to scar a lot anyways,
right.
And you see them just with like tattoos raised this far off their arm, and just mangled.
It's like Braille.
Yeah, completely mangled. I mean, you see that a lot. Yeah, I mean,
Is it true that you have to go to prison to get the best tattoos?
In the 80s. In the 80s, perhaps.
Got to go in the joint, Holmes.
If you don't have a Walkman battery.
Yeah. I started off with that method when I was in my teens.
You made your own machines and stuff?
But it never, it was like, it was not confidence inspiring enough to stick with it, and I didn't want to fuck up my real reputation,
right.
So I never really launched myself forward with that. I didn't want to be known as the guy doing that type of tattooing.
So what was your first machine? What did it look like?
It was just one of those little slot car motors, and with the ballpoint pen, and just like you melt it with a lighter, get everything to fit. Just kind of like do like this hot sculpting with the, you heat it up and like make sure everything fits, and a straw and just a needle.
And this is in the 80s. Who are you tattooing with that?
Just my own boys. Just like I had so many like punk rock friends and cholos and stuff that I grew up with that were just like they would just let me do anything. So I didn't. They were pretty kind, and they weren't very. They liked my drawings, so they just allowed me to get out there and just go nuts on them. And it was
what were your
stressful
drawings back then. What were you doing?
Skulls. Skulls and shit, skulls, dragons, kind of the same shit I do now,
Yeah, that's always cool. That's timeless, but it's kind of cool. You're around the 80s, like you can see like all the fads, the 80s, like getting barbed wire around your arm in the 90s. And
I got a funny barbed wire story like this when I was tattooing this one dummy, like this big meathead kind of biker guy, and he came in and he was like, the girl at the bar says that like she likes the guys that have the barbed wire around their arm.
That's the best way to get a tattoo.
Yeah, and I'm like, all right, we can do something like that. And then I did barbed wire around his arm, and then he came back the next week. He goes, hey man, she said that this wasn't it at all. And, and then at that point, you're just kind of like, all right, what do you people want from me? You know what I mean? I was like, well, look, bro, like,
right.
And that kind of gives you an insight into the interpersonal relationships with your customers that you have, because like it's like, bro, I don't know what you're talking about. You have to describe this shit to me. How am I supposed to fucking know? And so a lot of stuff like that. But I've had guys OD on me while tattooing them. I came up tattooing in San Francisco in the 90s, and with the large like gay clientele. So these fuckers party their asses off.
Nobody parties like gay guys.
No.
They is crazy. They get after it, man. And
These
endurance,
dudes,
like days on end. It's
I fucking started. I started a tattoo on this guy. We were gonna do a phoenix sleeve, and I could tell he was acting kind of weird right when I started drawing on him, because like he was like looking at it, and I'm like, all right, see how this goes. Started in on it, did like 2 lines. And he fucking passed out, started vomiting and shitting himself. And so, you clean him up and sit him down. And like, hey man, are you fucking okay? And he was like, I was at a nude rave in the desert for like 4 days or something, and I came back to New York just to get tattooed. I was like, what the fuck would make you think that you could do that to yourself?
Water and you have some sleep, and we'll get back.
But I've had these like big yoked. Muscle daddies like OD on ketamine.
Yeah,
they'll come out of the bathroom with it packed in their nose, and it's just like this kind of behavior is fucking insane.
Crazy.
It's like I have nothing but empathy.
And the pain, like when you do junkies and shit, the pain tolerance isn't there. Like
their ability to deal with it has been diminished.
They can't do it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a friend of mine. He was a big steroid guy, and he was getting tattooed across the stomach, which isn't a lovely spot anyway. Yeah. But like he was like, "I'm done. An outline is good. Thanks, I'm done."
Yeah, I think the fitness people not fighters, but people that are straight like bodybuilding type people are really bad at taking tattoo pain. Like or like the more vain somebody is, I think they become like there's a connection with those things. Like because like guys that are like I've noticed dudes that are super like they spend all the time staring at themselves and working out, and then when it comes to getting tattooed, they have a really hard time with the fucking pain.
You think it's something different than it is when you look at it and then you feel it. They're like, oh, that's how that, like, I think it was just Orange is the New Black or something. I was watching that, and the girl in there's getting tattooed, and she's like, this is way different than, like, she thinks she's being attacked in a way.
Well,
you know?
I told, when I tattooed David Camarillo years ago, I told him it feels like, you know, when you grab the gi and you get your skin
pinching and burning a little bit.
It feels just like a little accidental skin pinch. And he's like, oh, I can take that. And then when we started, he goes, oh, okay. But when it's unexpected, you're like, ugh, you don't know what to
also
get.
like jiu-jitsu, it's a good point, like jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, where you're got abrasions anyway, and people you're under pressure on your body.
Yeah, you're
stuff.
under tremendous like just discomfort.
Yeah.
For a prolonged period of time. So that, like, when I was getting my ribs tattooed, I would think of it in terms of like, all right, you know, just like you're sitting in this position, you're stuck here, and then he's going to take a break, and then he's going to start again.
Right.
And he's going to take a break, and then he's going to start
and
again.
it's not going to get worse. It's like
it's going to
what
stay
it
as
is.
this.
It's that.
Yeah, totally.
Cool, man. Do you start off as an artist, or did you start off with your interest in tattooing?
I was just drawing a lot. I didn't do it at any kind of level. I think I'd done flyers for friends' bands and stuff, and you know, just
no
basic
formal schooling.
punk rock drawing.
It's just all apprenticeship
and
stuff,
skateboard.
right?
Like I come from like skateboarding culture also, so drawing that kind of shit.
Those I think are tougher people than general people.
Yeah, they've had a lot of
fucking willing to smash into the cement at
they've had a
velocity.
lot of abrasions, and they're tough. They've had broken bones, so.
You know, Keith doesn't have any tattoos at all.
No,
I was just about to say, you're talking about the pain. I can't really speak to that. I can talk about suppressing pain and going to a different place and all that, but not yet.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
You know, tattooing is one of those kind of things like where when you know it's time, you know, and if you never did it, then you don't need to. Right. You know, it's like getting a neck tattoo in your 40s. You know, or like a black flag bars. Yeah. Like if you didn't have it already, like in your teens, it's not really the time to get it later in life.
Here's where I am. Like I always kind of thought about getting tattoos, or a couple things I thought about doing, but when I got into fighting, like in martial arts, everybody's got tattoos, and like it's almost like,
you want to stand out.
Well,
sorry to interrupt. Like when I first started doing jiu-jitsu, it was when like the Joe Moreira tournament, there was like barely. You know, it wasn't as huge as it is now. It was at like a school rec center or something like that. And then, you know, there wasn't many tattooed guys there. And when you saw them, they would see each other. You know what I mean? You'd be like, hey, what's up? Because it was still at the time when dudes and like American flag gis, it was like the second UFC, I think, had happened. So it was still at that stage where it was still kind of this freak thing. And then now the default location is shaved head tattooed guys. That's kind of the look, and it's funny because it makes me angry, kind of, because all these guys that I've known for years are like really into jiu-jitsu now, and I'm like, motherfucker, like when I was training 5 days a week, where were you? Like I needed guys to train with. I was having like an hour and a half commute each way to train with guys, and there was nobody. It was just like this weird thing that nobody knew about. Well, and that was early 90s.
Early 90s.
Yeah, Half Gracie, Caesar and Half when they were together.
You saw the first UFC, and that's cool. I want to do that.
I saw the first UFC, and then I was doing Muay Thai at the time. I saw the second one first because that was the one that was commercially available, and then the minute you say you're into that, somebody else will be like, "Oh, dude, I got it on video," you know. And so then second and first one, I was doing Muay Thai, and I was telling the guys, I was like, "Man, you got to see this thing. It's like fucking totally real. Like it was really crazy." And like, you remember the feeling you got when you first saw the first UFC, and you're just like, crazy, like your stomach a little bit, and you're like, "What? That's like, that is a real fight situation. This is," and you were so not used to seeing that in the media or on television. And so I was at the gym, and then there was a seminar for a Half and Caesar seminar flyer, and it was at the YMCA, like across the street from my house. And I'm like, I got to do this. All right, cool. So we went, did the seminar with Half.
How many people were there?
There was probably like 200 people there. And it was funny because there was like, but it was mixed. It was like Taekwondo, Aikido, all this different stuff. And then when Half and Caesar walked up, they just started doing like just straight up, just throwing drills into like arm locks, chokes, blah, blah, blah. Super dynamic, just like kind of just loosely going at it. And the whole place just went silent. Like everybody's like, holy shit. And then they just showed like basic Upa escape and like a Mata Leon.
That's such a cool time. That time, like how many people there were like karate people or whatever, like Tai Chi people.
And they were still they still were that Black Belt magazine kind of subset of. They're like
magic karate.
That stuff doesn't work. Yeah. They were still guys like that were really staunchly trying to defend this business plan that they've created that, they were like, fuck, this is going to totally upset my, my situation. But then that Monday, he did, like, he came over, like, we were doing the technique, and then he came over, and I did it, and he was like, cool. And then Monday, I drove an hour and a half out to his school in kind of the East Bay. I was in San Francisco. The minute I got out of the car, he comes out and he goes, I knew you were going to come. He goes, of all the guys there, he's like, I knew it'd be you.
Yeah.
And then I had it in my head that I was only going to do like 1 day a week, just a supplement. And then you're getting choked out by computer programmers and shit. And you're like, nah, I can't do this all the time. I can't just do 1 day a week here. And then, then I moved. Then did that for a couple of years, came to New York, and then just kind of weekend warriored it after that, because...
Such a cool thing, though, and like Greg calls it the arms race. When you got your whole group of friends,
for sure.
You start off at a certain level. It's just an arm race. Like that guy beat me at this, so I got to find out how to beat him, defend that, and then beat him at this.
It's a very healthy form of competition. It's very like fighter's lifestyle. Like when Half moved to, one of the fondest memories of that time period was when BJ first moved to California and was training with Half, and his two brothers were with him. And him and David Camarillo lived right next door to each other, and it was like literally a block away from Half's Academy. So we'd get there 10 in the morning, do a morning class, have lunch. They'd play GoldenEye, remember the PlayStation game or whatever. Play video games, train on the floor, dick around, and wait till the 7 o'clock class came around, and then train. And it's like, I was a bit older than those guys at that time, but I remember thinking like, this is like really fun way to just recreate. It's a very healthy culture, and just the fighting lifestyle is just really great for bringing people together that normally would have never met each other.
All about that warrior culture and finding other people in that culture. And it's funny you brought that up at 10 a.m. Like, seems like it's weird that wherever you go, like that's 10, 11, 12, that's always where they're the best. You got to be at that practice. Like, so you got to find a job, like, you got to bounce, supports doing tattoos or something like that. You can't have a regular job.
Oh, I was at Henzo's here, we're training with John Danaher in the morning. Like,
oh, really?
I've
been there.
His morning class was awesome because
love the way he teaches.
He's awesome. He's a great guy, and he's a very, very serious guy. I got a funny story about him. Like, me and him,
I got a lot of funny stories about
when I first came to New York, I was just working. I was like charging forward to get my purple belt, and I was just like training all the time. And then he was still a blue belt at that time also. So me and him used to just like fucking go at it. And he used to like wear he used to for the no-gi he would wear like a Rams jersey or something like that. So they'd make fun of him because he'd never washed this fucking thing, and that's all he'd ever wear. But we would have we'd go at it, and then I took a lunch time off, and he'd become his black belt in that time period. Yeah, he's one of those guys where like once he got to purple, he went blah 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 blah. Like he just completely
in a positive way, super geek nerd kind of guy. Yeah. And I say that.
Yeah, of course. And I was like, now that he was teaching the morning class, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna do it private with you. Tell me where my level's at, what I need to work on. And I think in his mind, he just remembered that person from years ago. So he just fucking shit hammered me, like put it on, like transitioning one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, to where like little. You get the little sand from your teeth gritting together and stuff. And I was right at that point to where I was going to be like, bro, all right, you got it. It's very established that, you're fucking great. You're awesome. And then he was like, I was right at that point to be like, and he goes, this is what you need to do. And I was like, see, he pushed you right to that limit to where you're like, you're going to be like, like so frustrated that you can't pose any kind of attack towards this person. Everything you're doing is being neutralized. And he goes, okay, this is what we got to work on. I'm like, oh, it's great.
Well, we got to know him because we were real tight with George St. Pierre. And
I remember when he would come through.
Yeah. He's talking about this new guy, this amazing guy. You got to meet this guy. He's just phenomenal, like no one else. You got an amazing guy, and he started hanging around with George everywhere. And you like this because you're talking about the rash guard, and so George.
John would wear a rash guard like dinner. I think he wore one to Sarah's wedding.
Yeah. And George is like, you're hanging around George with fight week. You're going to clubs. You're doing that whole thing, and you're part of his team. And like, he doesn't drink or anything, but he needs to be social. He's going to clubs like the night before weigh-ins or whatever. And then, so Todd was always with him, getting into clubs with his tennis shoes and like knee pants and a
Enzo rash guard.
Yeah.
Well, I was eating with a friend of mine, a tattoo guy that knew nothing about jiu-jitsu, and we're eating, and he goes, "Why is that guy wearing a wetsuit?" And immediately my mind was like, oh my God, it's going to be somebody I know. And I look out the window and it was him. This was 10 years ago.
Just amazing teacher. I don't know how many people teach like this, but like with every move, like you remember, was just like, it's not just like, here's how you do an arm bar. Every single move starts from standing up to bringing guy to the ground, to the transition to the submission, to the options off the submission. Yeah. Every single move is taught like that. And
it's very, it's very not a non-lazy way. Like it's very, like very well thought out, and he doesn't care about how anybody else does it. Like he just does everything like what he thinks is, what makes the most sense. Which he's a fucking awesome teacher.
So what's your practice like now? What do you do?
Just work out a bit.
No, in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, who do I train with?
Yeah, do you train?
I trained with that guy Birdman, who's a Jamie Cruz black belt. Yeah. He's right by my house, so he's the easiest. I've trained at Clockwork with Josh Griffiths.
I've heard of this place. Yeah.
They're awesome dudes. I still tattoo, like I tattooed Hollis. I've known Hollis and Igor since they were teenage, cool. Like since they were young kids. Yeah. So I've tattooed Hollis. Me and him are pretty tight. I got a lot of credit to go and get privates from him, so I think I'm going to take care of it.
Yeah.
Living in the city, if it's not, I mean, I work out at home and do my own thing, but it's hard to even get to Henzo's school if you're not like on the subway and stuff like that. If you drive and shit like that, Midtown is a fucking nightmare. Yeah. And sandwiching that into your day, for myself, it's just easier for me to train right by my house.
Cool, man. That was
I got a lot of like injuries and stuff that I work around, wrist and knee injuries and stuff like that.
Well, what belt are you?
I'm blue.
Blue belt.
But we stopped. I got my blue in the first year, and then I was working on getting the purple. And then nobody started training with the gi anymore. So it was like almost like 10 years of when nobody trained with the gi.
Yeah.
So, but the thing about that is when you have time, when you take long times off, you kind of manifest all the basic level stuff to where even if people are coming out with like De La Hiva guard and all this like new shit, you're just kind of like conservative, tight pass, Kimura. You know what I mean? You just do that stuff, consistently.
He's the king of basics.
Yeah, just and it makes you kind of really, because you're always constantly defending yourself every time you go back, and so you're never in it. You people start, they'll confuse you for a second. You're like, okay, well, I haven't seen this yet, but I kind of have an idea what he's trying to do.
If you're really good with positions, you can almost just make up moves and just figure it out.
And but just keeps your game really conservative. But you perform that at if you've been doing the basics for so long, I mean that's harder for a lot of people that come out with all this fancy new shit.
You ever have a wicked training day, especially in gis, and you come back trying to tattoo and
all the time. Like I've heard
all the time. That's scary.
I used to all the time. Like I would have to my wrist. I can only put it back this far.
Hey, same here, man.
I tried to throw a guy, and I knew I tried to throw him like a fireman's carry.
Yeah.
And it's like I knew I didn't have it. And I'm like, I'm just going to do it anyways. Yeah. And it's like, and just landed on my wrist. And then I just taped it up and went and tattooed. So now it won't even go back. Over time, I think it's build up a scar tissue in there or something. So injuries like that. And that's another thing also. If you have a full day of tattooing, it's very mentally taxing. So you kind of sometimes have to make the choice between, am I going to do something that's going to completely wipe me out, or be able to put in a full day of work? Or, just grown up shit.
What's that number? How many tattoos are you doing in a day?
Well, when I was working, I cut my workload down a bit. I only tattoo 3 or 4 people a week.
Yeah.
A couple hours at a time. But I run the business though. So, but I did 20 years of all day long.
Yeah.
You know, just like giant full body tattoos all
so
day
these
long.
3 or 4 people are just like reoccurring people.
Recurrent people, and they're people that have been in my, you know, my customers for a long time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's good. I'm very fortunate. Like I've never once thought that I wasn't. I hit a lucky streak with all the people that I met in my life. You know what I mean? Like I was lucky at certain points to be in the right place at the right time with tattooing, with jiu-jitsu, to meet all these people at the same time, and kind of how everything we were talking about, like how it all comes together. With tattooing, I was very lucky because I was driving a forklift, and one day I was just like, man, I fucking hate this job. Like, it was more that it wasn't that I hated the job, but if I don't get started on this tattoo thing, you know, I'm never gonna do it. So one day I was just like, after work, I just took my drawing book down to I was like, I heard there was a bunch of younger kids kind of from my scene at the tattoo shop that was by my house, because it had previously been just like hardcore older biker guys. And so I went in there with my drawings and just kind of introduced myself and just talked to these dudes. And the next thing you know, I was like roommates with one of them, and then he got a job at like one of the best shops in San Francisco at that time. So then I became part of that scene, and then everything kind of just fell into place. So I was very lucky because I know a lot of guys that went through a lot more, like they grew up in like Kansas or something, and they really had to sacrifice a lot more to be in the presence of people that were really doing what they were into. You know, it wasn't as easy as just walking across the street for them. You know, and I feel like with jiu-jitsu is the same way. It's like the minute I was interested in this thing, it was just like, oh shit, it's across the street from my house. You know, it's like, it's very, very fortunate.
That's funny. It's like laws of attraction, man. Pirate life, just finding what you love.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's and then in New York, you know, when I moved to New York, everything kind of fell in place like that as well. And so, you know,
is there like a thing like if you were to start up a shop, like are there like if somebody doesn't really know how to like is it the market dictates it, or are there other tattooists that would be looking and going, what the fuck are you doing opening a shop here? You don't have any experience.
Yes.
Is there that kind of a thing?
Yeah,
I know
but
in LA there's a feeling of that kind of thing.
There's not. It's more just. It's more implied, and it's more kind of just surliness.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're kind of like that anyway. That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
how lucky you are with your clientele.
Yeah.
Like, you got guys that you think are cool, that you work with all the
Yeah.
time, as opposed to, I mean, all tattoo artists are a little surly. Just
Yeah,
because
for sure.
everybody that walks in the door is like, you've got to deal with the same
And it's
questions that are important to those people coming in, but you're like, God, you didn't even think this through at all, or whatever the thing is, you know?
And I think since it's been on television, like you know, when I started tattooing, it wasn't even really clear that you could make a full-time job living out of
Right.
it. So
Just
I
like
was
fighting.
I was willing to like maybe drive a truck or something, or do some other side thing. I was very fortunate that I was able to do it full time. But kids now, they see the rock star status from television immediately. So they think that and they also look at it like they don't really see that it's difficult. Like they think, oh, I can do that. But they think it's so
anybody
easy.
does that's good. People look
yeah,
at it and they're like, I never got good at anything, so that must be easy. It's like, why would you think that?
Yeah. So, you know, people, and that's why there's so many people that, you know, tattoo technology is so widely available now. It's so easy to get a hold of machines and stuff, whereas before, even 20 years ago, man, you had to really have get the trust of somebody. You had to be a member of an association
and be cool enough to hang out with for a long period of time.
And people trust
learn.
you. Now, you know, like probably, I would say one of, you know, for if you're tattooing people in their 20s, probably out of every 50 will try to be a tattooer at some point.
Crazy.
The more they get tattooed, the more they think they can do it.
I think we see that with jiu-jitsu and with CrossFit, both of those things. People are like, I'm kind of an okay athlete, I guess I'll open a gym.
Yeah.
Like everybody thinks that too. I'm like, wow, that's nuts.
the front of the line instead of serving.
And the other thing is you feel like, I don't know, tattooing, it's different.
Instead of actually being on the line, they want to jump out there and get all of the accolades and everything from being, at the top.
It's kind of that thing too. There's no legs to that because you're not in love with the work, and if you're not in love with the work, there's no lasting.
But it's more that they want to. Well, it's like when I was saying about John, like in the morning, the 7 a.m. class was awesome because it was all dudes that had regular jobs,
right?
So there was no ego, and so it was like guys in their late 30s, early 40s. So you could get solid training in, whereas like 1 in the afternoon, it's the guys that fancy themselves MMA fighters, but they're not really pursuing it, but they like the outfit and everything. And training with those dudes is the best way to get injured, like immediately. Like you'll just get fucking start pulling, like just grabbing something and just squeezing it as hard as possible.
You're talking about, I remember the guys wearing tap out everywhere.
Everything. Affliction, tap out.
Maybe got affliction tattoo somewhere. Yeah.
And they always had some story about that weekend that some guy that some dumbass that they fucked up. It's like, dude, enough.
Yeah. What do you think about, like, as far as it's like a huge responsibility too what you do in that way, and then your long hours it's like tedium also, and so like there's got to be a sense of like a consciousness that goes with it. And like I'm wondering like where you or what your path has been with like spirituality and tattooing and your work and how you bring that together, and maybe even special clients that come in, because there's people that are really, I think it's a weird craft and that you have, because people are looking for spirituality through getting tattoos also,
and you have to really be careful with people you have to choose your words carefully, because the customer kind of looks to you as a kind of a leader type of figure. And because you're doing, like with myself, like I did a lot of Japanese work and stuff for a long time, and as an artist you're thinking in the nuts and bolts and the creating of it, so the spirituality is inherent in the message, like whatever the image is, if it's like retelling of like a myth or like some sort of like a elemental being, dragon or something like that, that element of it is already there. But so to you, you're just like, how can I make it cooler? So you're kind of just geeking out on the design. They are investing all this like emotional energy into it. They're not thinking so much about like the details and stuff like that, which is what you're thinking of. So sometimes they'll say something and I'll be like, it's just fucking drawing dumb pictures on people, and they'll be like, whoa. Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm like, I don't really mean that, but like don't be so like sensitive, like I understand this is a big deal.
You have a real interesting art, man. Like, do you take like ownership in your tattoos? Because you create this incredible thing, but then it's gone. Like, it's gone with them. Like you know.
As long as I get a good photo, I'm usually pretty cool. Like, but I guard those pretty. I try to guard those pretty well. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting also that it's you do it and then it's out there living in the world, and you'll see these people. It's because.
This guy's going to appreciate this more than a picture above his fireplace.
For sure. Yeah. And, you have an input because they remember, you're cycling through so many people throughout the week and throughout your career. Mm-hmm. But for them, the time they spent with you is actually very important. Yeah. And a lot of times, like when I have to reschedule a client or something, or the customer will freak out and they'll get like really sensitive. Like they'll like, fuck, I really needed this. And for you, you're thinking, dude, chill. Like, go get your kid something or something. Like, because
they say shit like that. They go, I need to get tattooed. I'm like, well, I don't get that at all.
You don't need it. Like the more you're around it, the less of that. Like it becomes. Well, that's the same with the pain thing, because I think it's more in relation to people's age. Not so much their age as their pain tolerance, but from when they start getting tattooed, a man will be in like, sometimes if they're even in their 50s, they're so excited because it's new that the pain is kind of minimized. And then the more they don't want to let you down. They don't want you to think that they're a pussy. They want to impress you.
Do you still get tattooed?
I don't really have a lot of space left, but I'm going to get this arm lasered and have it redone. So I'm going to be back. You're going to laser
your arm, and then do you already have a design that you're interested in getting?
Like this one I first started doing jiu-jitsu. It's a leopard man in a mounted triangle on an alligator guy. And I thought this was just the coolest shit at the time. I was like, dude, this is awesome. And now I'm like, I just didn't take that.
Where did you see that?
I had it.
You got to be in the microphone.
One of the guys that I worked with drew it for me. But I think this is probably one of the first jiu-jitsu themed tattoos.
Forever.
I'll have photos of it. I'm good. I lived with it for a long time.
What do you think about? I gotta always get signed off on films for tattoos because of Mike Tyson's debacle, and because I don't know if you know this or not.
On his face?
But his tattoo artist, whoever that twat of a human is,
Victor.
He fucking.
I knew him.
Well, he should kill himself. But
I'm not friends with him. But I know who you're talking about.
He fucking sued Universal or something
Hangover
after The
or
Hangover,
something.
right?
Yeah.
Because he's like, that's my art. That's now and so they paid him off like pussies the way
they'd have to,
the way they are.
Yeah.
And they instead of fighting it, because I would fight it. Like, you don't own that. That's not. And fuck you also. And I have fucking $1 million in lawyers. So eat dicks.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that. They paid
He
him
was
off, and so
fortunate.
now
He
everybody
was
has
lucky.
to pay, or everybody has to get signed off in this pretend thing. Like, it's okay with your tattoo artist that you're on film.
So you have to, like, when you're doing
Depending
a
who
role
I'm
or something
working
like
for,
that,
but
that's fucking retarded.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
He changed everything, made everybody's life horrible.
That type of I mean, we live in a fucking litigious, we live in an overly litigious fucking society. I mean, before I was tattooing, I worked.
What a sensitive guy to be in the tattoo world, and you're such a pussy. That
I think he was just looking for.
What are you, a junkie? You
free
need money
stuff.
that bad, Victor? Grow up, you fuck.
They call that rent seeking. I think he was just rent seeking. But yeah, it's fucking. Before I did tattoos, I was a bouncer.
Me too.
Did security, that kind of shit, and you could get away with like hitting a guy. You could throw a guy downstairs. You could like do all sorts of fucked up shit. It wasn't. Yeah, like nowadays, like
He's like,
hell
of course,
no. Like, you're
that's the job.
Yeah, like you can't put your hands on anybody in any way whatsoever in that kind of job.
Yeah.
Like at all. So we just live in a different time. Everybody's looking for. And that as well.
Yeah, man.
World star.
Yeah. Bow. Yeah, that changes everything.
Yeah, for sure.
The camera phones change the world.
It does.
They change your business here, like the way technology has been, and
Instagram has changed tattooing because it's it kind of has abolished the portfolio. It's kind of crushed the necessity for a website, also like a proper website.
Yeah, I guess so.
And because people just have all their work on Instagram, and you see it the minute they finish it. So it's made it so easy for people to see great tattoos. There's tons of shit out there also, but
it must raise the bar.
It raised the bar
everywhere.
considerably. But also just from a stylistic point of view, when I started tattooing, everybody was kind of trying to find their own way. So it wasn't really cool to copy somebody else's style. Now people are they just want to do it. So they don't really care about individuality so much, but they just like, some guy will post an eagle, a really cool eagle, and then they'll print that picture out, trace it, and do it exactly like that. Like there's not a lot of.
It's always a weird thing, though. I think because there's so much like not in here a whole lot, but like in a lot of tattoo shops, there's so much flash.
Yeah.
It's just like maybe 1,000 pictures of flash even on the wall, but then you're also in this super unique original art form. Like they're both together. Like here's copying and which is kind of cool because it's like an homage to like old school tattoo artists like Sailor Jerry or whoever.
Yeah, people, a lot of times, like with the tattooers, kind of just put the flash on the wall to create a certain kind of mood. Like whether if they want it to be a traditional Americana style shop, they'll get a bunch of really cool retro vintage flash. Or if they want to just deal with dummies, they'll just get like a lot of like really simple designs that like an average guy can just pick from.
I suppose depending where you are.
Yeah,
if you're in a port city, if you're in a tourist city, you're going to
you have a bunch of military
make it easy
designs
for
or
dumb
something.
people.
Yeah, and require like Flash makes it really easy to not waste time talking to people that aren't serious, because then they have some, because if they don't have something to look at to busy themselves with, they're going to be wasting your time when you're trying to do something else. So it's an easy way to do that. I've worked in every type of shop. I've worked in shops like where you use the lowest common denominator, like the worst people, where you wanted a bulletproof glass between them and you while you were tattooing them. Like, can you just put your hand through the little hole here and I'll take care of this. There's this guy that's been tattooing in Brooklyn for a long time, and it was an Italian neighborhood. Now it's like just super hood, and there's this famous picture of him where he's tattooing some woman behind the bulletproof glass. I mean, he's not tattooing some woman, but right behind him is just all the neighborhood people, and they're just like right up on him, and then one woman is breastfeeding. Like, it's like such a crazy ghetto situation. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, like that would make my job. I would have to be so stressed out. Like,
that would be normal for you.
Yeah, and it's just lined around
the
block every day. Like, it's just the craziness. But it's tattooing is the kind of art that every level of society and every social strata has their own language for it.
Right.
It has their own type of imagery that they like.
You ever do like hand poke and like all like those kinds of things?
Not for it at any degree of sophistication, but I've fucked around on my friends and stuff like that. With that kind of stuff.
Well, what show were you on? You're on Inked, or you were on?
I've just done guest spots on. I was on Ink Master as a judge.
Right.
And I did guest spots on.
Well, what do you think about it? Because I was like, I saw it in a hotel room sometime, and I was like, wow, this is fucking crazy. Like, it's like speed racing, tattoo. Like,
it's a great opportunity for my friends that are on those shows. I don't really think the quality of the show is anything like it's gonna. I don't think that's gonna elevate the art form at all. I went to one of their like grand finales, and it was so fucking weird to see the people that had flown to New York to be there for the grand finale, who are huge fans of the show, and they were cheering like it was their team for like the guy that they liked on television. And for myself, I was just like, man, that is weird. It's really weird. Like, but America is we live in a TV, propagandized, totally propagandized culture. So.
I always thought, where do they get the fucking people to do it? The thing I watched,
I think they have to pay for it too.
It was like
the customers have to pay themselves.
Way.
Yeah.
They go in there and they're like, well, I'm horrible at like whatever. They pick portraits or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm horrible at portraits. And then they're like, okay, and you got 20 minutes, and it's got to be this big or whatever. I'm like, you're just asking to ruin people's skin, right?
Sure.
Like there's just no other way to put it. It's
and
like they're putting people in a horrible
the
position.
people that are on that show, the contestants or the canvases on that show, they are so fragile. Like, you see them being so fragile because they don't really even have a lot of confidence in the artists doing work on them.
They can't. There's no way you
Take
could.
care of Breezy. They are so nervous, and then when you're judging their tattoo, you're just basically talking to the guy that did it, and you're like, this is what you did wrong. And customers are crying.
Right, they're
like,
sitting right there hearing
crying.
you be critical.
Yeah, I remember like when I went to the grand finale, the girl sitting next to me was one of the girls that she had like a tiger on. Like, she was like, "You're so mean to me," and I'm like, I didn't say anything to you. You know, like, am I like, I just said that was a, I didn't.
If I were gonna say that looked good, it doesn't mean that it looks good just because now I'm being nice to like that.
And I didn't even say it was shitty. I just pointed out like stylistic critiques of the photo I was looking at on this screen in front of me. I wasn't like saying it to you, but they were crushed. Like, they get crushed. Yeah.
Saying it is heard now.
Yeah, they get totally crushed.
Do you think those people go and get their shit fixed afterwards? Are there any great tattoos that come out of that show, or not really?
Like small, some good ones. I'm sure they've had really well established tattooers on there. I was going to go on there. I got dared to go on there by the. I think I tweeted that when the first show came out. I tweeted it was bullshit or something like that, and then the guy was like, "Hey, why don't you come on here and show these guys?" Like, the producer was like, "You should show these guys how it's done." I was like, "I'll fucking do that stuff. I'll come on tomorrow." And then I'm glad I didn't have to, because I would know that I would have probably gotten kicked off immediately, because you have to live. You're sequestered and you have to live in a house with all those guys in New York. I couldn't do that. Like, I couldn't put and you know how that shit is. Like, reality TV, especially something that's like a game show based, is where they can't have you talk to anybody or anything. So I'm too old to be in that.
You're a founder,
man.
man.
I can't be in that house with a bunch of kids and not talking to my family, and like, because they hit up my wife used to work in television. She's got a legit job now, but like, she they wanted us to go on The Amazing Race, but this is like how Hollywood and all that shit works, is like, they're like, we want you to go on The Amazing Race. I think it'll be awesome. You have to fly to LA tomorrow. And then they had all this kind of stuff. And it's like, neither of us are aspiring actors. Like, maybe if we'd applied for this and it was like, oh shit, they came up, and it's 3 months from now. And it's like, oh, that'll be really fun. But they're like, no, drop everything. And then you can't, if your mom's in the hospital, you can't call her and all this stuff. It's like, no, we can't do that. That is just a recipe for our because they want also they kind of want to put you under a lot of relationship duress. You know what I mean? To get you as stressed out as possible against each other. Yeah. Like, no, we don't need this at this point in our life.
I used to like that show, I don't know what it's called, where they make over the tattoos. Just because you see people come in and you can see
they redo them.
The awful decisions that
I
people
wanted
made
to do
in their lives.
remember the exhibit, the Pimp My Ride, but do like Pimp My Bod, where you get some like person with all these fucked up tattoos, throw them in a van, and like everybody just goes like gangbang style, like 4 people on the person at one time, like
I would watch that,
out, and then they're like, "Oh, I got these new tattoos." I'm like, fuck.
yeah, I would watch that. Now with that, like, was there? This is a really common question for guys that do tattoos, but was there a time like when the guy came in with a bad decision, wanted to do something, you just said like, "No, man, I can't do that."
Yeah, I would do that all the time. You try to steer them in the right direction.
Can you remember one?
Specifically, people come in with horrible, like they'll say they want a dragon, and they'll have all these printouts of like the worst shit you've ever seen. And I'll be like, how do you, like, I'm curious because I'm like, where did you come across this? Like, it's so bad that you have to have been looking for something that bad. Yeah. And they're like, well, I don't know where to look. And then I'll be like, watch this. And then I'll just type dragon in the window. And then way better stuff comes up. Like, image search is not hard for anybody. Like, but somehow, like, I think a lot of those people, they go to like pictures of tattoo website. You know what I mean? And then it'll be like a bunch of stuff it's just such horrible shit. So I'll be like, listen, man, you should do like, go ahead.
What blows your mind, man? What do you see and like what kind of
direction that it's going?
Yeah. Well, yeah, so mainstream now, and everyone's getting like big. I love there's not like stickers anymore, and like people are getting big old sleeves and big old part of their body like artwork.
There's so many great. It's interesting because when the internet phenomena started, I was very kind of not bitter, but I was just like, these people don't know anything about the founders and stuff. Like they are looking at like a third generation version of something that's, for instance, like maybe Ed Hardy had created or something like that. And I'd approach it from like more of a purist point of view. Now, I mean, kids are going to be kids, and you can't force somebody to. That's like trying to tell somebody like the relevance of Hoist Gracie or something like that when they're just like, oh, that guy. They're like, I watched those videos. That guy looked like he sucked, because they don't have the like context. They don't have the context and the time and the
evolution of it.
Yeah, the evolution. Like all they see is comparing it to now. So. There's so many great tattooers out there. I think it's gonna become so flooded that it's gonna, like it already is kind of personality based.
Yeah.
But people are just gonna have to realize that just because you can don't mean you should, and you shouldn't just jump into like a lot of people. The internet, I've noticed, has like started like people competing with each other, like trying to like one up each other for designs and stuff like that. So people are getting like really young, like all these young girls that get like the script on their eye and shit like that. Oh. And it's just, just because you have access to this, you don't want to be completely neck blasted and fucking tattoos on your face when you're not even really of college age yet, like, in which you see a lot of kids doing that. I think it's going to be really impossible to be a shitty tattooer in the future because the bar has been elevated. But, I mean, I think I just may also be spoiled because of the people that are around me and the stuff that I choose to look at myself, because customers will be like, all I see is shitty tattoos all day. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Like, there's probably, definitely the bad outweighs the good. It's just that there's more people now.
If you, a friend of mine, he's, I said, what's the number one thing for you, like with your kids, And he says, I'm just trying to keep my daughter off the pole for long enough,
for sure.
and by the time and then that I'll be a success. That being the gauge, would you rather keep her from being a stripper or from keeping, if you had to choose, stripper or face tattoo?
I think they kind of go together, though. Like they're both, if you see strippers
I've never seen
now,
a stripper with a face tattoo.
Like
couple girls with neck tattoos.
Maybe the little eyebrow. I don't know about the face. I think it'd be. It depends on it depends on the demographic of the strip club you go to. Like there's some really out in Queens. There's some really ratchet ones out in Queens. but they're both horrible choices.
I always see these guys in LA with neck tattoos. I'm like, you pussy.
Yeah.
Right away, I think they're pussies.
Just because they don't have them anywhere else, or just straight to the neck?
Mostly.
Yeah.
Mostly.
We used to call
their
that
first tattoo is like visible. I'm like, you're just so scared that somebody's going to grab and fuck you in an alley, you little fucking fairy boy, that you fucking put, and you think that's going to dissuade somebody. Now you just look dumb.
We used to call that a Scandinavian bodysuit. Because you see all these kids like at the like Swedish and Norwegian kids, because it's so cold there that they get into tattooing and they're like hands and
really
and neck first, and then they just have a couple little scattered tattoos here and there, but like they wanted to go the full blast,
right?
So that they get the attention.
You got to say no to a lot of people. Like if they're like that's your, like I know a lot of tattoo artists and they're like I won't tattoo somebody from the neck up or something.
Yeah,
if that's their
like,
first tattoo or whatever.
They don't know what they're doing. Yeah. You gotta just kind of judge them away from that, and then they'll get offended. But like, that's not on you.
I think it's important, man. Those conversations. Yeah. I was like, you get into tattoo, and you're like, oh, I'll get this, and you see all these little pieces that none of them make sense together at all. And this dude, he came up. He was Bill. His name's Bill Wisman, and he was a contemporary. He grew up in San Francisco with Ed Hardy, and he goes, listen, stupid.
He's from out your way?
Yeah. He tattooed my arm, and he goes, you're gonna get a bunch of little pieces. You're gonna look like every graffiti boy sprayed you in town, stupid. Like fucking think of a big piece. We'll do something nice and pretty on you. And I was like, that was the best advice I ever got.
Well, and and then also when people get like a small tattoo that they are kind of unhappy with, they just keep adding to that thing. Right. It's like, dude, just forget it. That one's lost. Like that cause is lost. Yeah. Move on to something new. You don't need to just keep polishing this turd because you're never going to be happy with this fucking thing.
Or you're going to end up covering it up 4 different times.
Yeah. We had a guy like there's a dude that like wanted he wanted like hair tattooed, like hair follicles, or like he was balding, and he was like, and the guy that was tattooing him was like, listen, man, I think this is a bad idea. And he's like, no, I'm really, and he's like, you're gonna come back, and this is gonna be very. And
if you're already balding, the rest is gonna go.
Yeah, and it's gonna.
You're gonna have a speckled head.
We're gonna just have a. I don't want to have a weird relationship like this with you, with you coming back all the time. And the guy's like, I promise I will not do that. I promise I will not. I'll be happy with what you do. He did it, and then soon enough, he's like, "Can you get more volume?" I was thinking, it's like, see, this is exactly what you get with these people. You're dragging yourself into this one-way relationship where they rely on you for their self-esteem,
right? What a trip. Is that the weirdest shit you've heard of? Like tattooing somebody's head like that seems weird.
It's really fucking weird. Because imagine like what you would have in common with somebody like that to have to spend any amount of time with them.
First it's a vanity thing. It's not like I'm trying to do this for the beauty of the art.
It's the vanity of a really weird person. It's like weird. A really strange kind of serial killer.
And they had that stuff you could spray paint your head anyway if you wanted. You could spray it.
Yeah, it's like a silly string, the black silly string.
I did jiu-jitsu with a guy one time when I was still doing gi jiu-jitsu. And I was always wondering, I was like, how in the fuck
what is this
do I end up with ink and shit all over me all the fucking time? And then I put it together. It's only when I roll with Alberto. I'm like, I wonder what the fuck that's about.
Gross.
And then every time he would sweat, his head would start leaking that goddamn spray paint that they sell at 4 a.m. on TV. And I'm like, you got to go to bed earlier in the fucking day, dude, because you're killing me with your late night products.
Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah,
that is fucking
horrible.
Gross.
What a horrible idea. It's really better than a pet rock, though. I can talk guys. It's almost like a joke. I can talk guys into spray painting their heads.
Well, if a tattooer were, I mean, there are a lot of them. A lot of tattooers are very kind of fucked up people, and a lot of like very selfish. A lot of them like the tattooing is the only job they've ever had. Wow. So like they don't understand what people have to go through to get the money to get tattooed. Like
how much is a regular hour of tattoo?
Like,
what's it vary inside this shop? Like from the brand new guy to
$200 to $300 an hour. An hour. So
now is that different because it's more expensive because it's New York City and rent's very high?
It's the person. It's the person. It's because of the reputation of the artist and because the New York's rent's very high. If I lived somewhere else, I'd probably work more with whatever the people could handle, But generally, my rent is fucking
$100 or more, regardless of where you are. If there's somebody reputable, right?
How close to the center of the country you are. The big cities. I mean, there's people out there that like they tattoo one celebrity and then they're immediately $500 an hour.
Crazy.
Yeah, they're trying to get it because they know their fame is fleeting. They know all that stuff is fleeting, so they are just trying to get in when they can and establish that, so you don't really fault them. And I only fault tattooers for doing crappy work, and like the money thing is kind of like something that will, as long as you're giving somebody a quality product, it's kind of worth whatever they were willing to pay for it.
Sure.
So it's like that guy that used to tattoo like 50 Cent and all those rappers and stuff, and he had a reputation for gouging them, like really, but it's rappers, and the quality, the work
you
they're
catch a bullet tattooing the wrong guy.
Yeah, and the work they're getting from him wasn't something that couldn't have been done by somebody else, but they wanted to say it was him, so therefore he can dictate the pricing, because you can't get it. It's not like a car has like an established value,
right?
Because you can get another one just like it,
right? But this guy's hand is that guy's hand. That's it. You ever do a book or anything like that, or do anything like to supplement yourself that's outside of the tattoo industry?
I'm working on a bunch of those kind of projects now, like just in the thought phase. I want to do I've been doing a lot more like the Norse art, like Viking type of stuff, and integrating that.
And you come from more of a traditional Japanese style that you kind of put your twist on, right?
This is a new departure. Did Japanese stuff. I mean, I grew up drawing, Conan and shit like that. Like, so that's kind of a return to that style. But I've been drawing a lot more of that kind of stuff now, but integrating the lessons that you learn from Japanese tattooing and stuff like that, and investigating a lot of that kind of stuff. So I've been doing a lot more of those kind of designs lately, which I really enjoy. And it kind of, I never got burnt out on Japanese tattooing, but I got burnt out on, when I would sit down and just my hand would just start to draw naturally. It was just a dragon head every time. And I want to like reignite some fire and do something different. Something that I'm just like not doing.
And just I think once you're in the learning, I mean, whatever that is, it's like now you're learning a new thing and a new style, and that's the thing that lights you up instead of going, I'm going to go and fucking maybe build houses because I'm tired of this shit. Like you got to learn new things.
Like I work on motorcycles a bit. I want to learn how to make knives and stuff, fun shit like that, And I would like to, learn more about like welding and fabrication and like at a high level,
like furniture, stuff.
Just making really cool. I like to make stuff, So
you ever travel with like to go and be like, I want to go and study this guy's stuff? Or
I've tattooed in Japan. I was like one of the first American tattooers I know to go over there. And I want this. My wife and I are going to Iceland from our honeymoon this year. So we're going to do like the Scandinavian tour, go to all these monuments and stuff like that, and, have that whole experience. So we're looking forward to that.
Rad. Yeah. Lacie just spent a bunch of time in Iceland.
You were in Iceland?
Awesome. The waterfall Dettifoss, which is like the waterfall of the gods, which is apparently where they took all the deities and chucked them in the...
Are you from there?
No, but I actually get mistaken for Icelandic all the time. But everyone there tried to speak Icelandic to me because they're like, oh, you look like one of our...
That's an obvious one.
But it's one of the most powerful places I've ever felt an energy from in my life.
It looks
phenomenal.
It looks fucking amazing. And my family's Danish, but I have family in Iceland also.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to reconnecting with family that I've never met.
That's cool. Are they in Reykjavik or
they are in
north?
Copenhagen and in I guess somewhere. I don't know if they're in the capital city yet, but so I'm going through like that whole process of trying to find because my mom's family moved here from Denmark in like the 40s.
Yeah.
So trying to reconnect with that part of my family and stuff, which is really fascinating.
Everyone's name is Thor or Thor's daughter, so it's easy to find. I think there's only 400,000 people. 90% of them live.
And my Danish family name is Nielsen, which is like Smith.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Good luck, but we'll figure.
You'll
it out.
actually find. I mean, it's small.
Yeah.
It's really small, and one of the coolest countries of.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
What are you going in the summer or the winter?
We're going in spring.
Cool. So you get kind of a half day, half night.
Yeah, it'll be awesome.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
Maybe some northern lights.
Well, I'm going to rent a bike and ride around the perimeter of the island.
Yeah.
So
the Golden Triangle,
awesome.
they call it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be so
It's unreal. Cool. If you have a chance to take a helicopter, there's nothing better than seeing. I mean, it looks like you're in Mars. The different stuff that you can see and the different landscapes are unreal.
So that's real cool. You're talking about Norse stuff. Like you're talking to what I've been looking at a lot lately. I've been starting to think about It's kind of a shame now. I'm starting to think about finally doing the tattoo stuff, doing the thing. It's not a midlife crisis or anything like that. Like, it's just like
you should play. I'm surprised you haven't been cast as a Viking.
Vikings is one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite TV shows. It's amazing. Yeah.
You're a natural for that.
Yeah, the dude's brother's my favorite.
Rollo.
Rollo's cool. Just go off. Anyways. So I started researching like Germanic tattoos and stuff, just like they find in like mummies and all that, and trying to find like what that kind of stuff is, and that's really interesting to me. Like,
that one, they found that one guy in like preserved in the bog in Denmark, and he had like 40 something tattoos on him. Yeah, it's really cool shit. Like, it's tattooing has been around since man. It's like one of the first. I think probably man had tattooed himself before he was even what we call man now. Like, they probably started putting images on himself before he was even like what the Homo erectus, or like what the level that we're at now. Probably more primitive versions of Homo sapiens tattooed themselves, because... And
they were all right artists too, weren't they?
Did some cool shit. Yeah. It's really interesting because it's like really... a lot of the early ones are they're not only significant like in a spiritual level, but it looks like a lot of them like it'll just be like 5 lines, almost like an inventory.
Yeah.
Like boom, 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 like to remind himself of something, or like to specify, some,
That's why I always think that means you've been in 5 epic battles.
5 epic wars.
Something like that, yeah.
Well, it didn't...
Going for 7.
What's Gustafsson, like when he would get a triangle every victory, and then when he thought, when he felt that he had beat John Jones, he just had it half colored in. Yeah, like it was like a little triangle shark's tooth. That stuff's pretty cool.
What else are you seeing, the real ancient stuff that you like?
I just love that style of art. I draw my own style is a kind of somewhat more illustrative, but I'm really into like drawing like all of the berserker type of artwork, weapons and stuff like that, wolves, all the natural elements of it, and in integrating like a lot of the elemental aspects of Japanese tattooing, which is it's the very, very similar, like fire, water, natural chaos.
What do you think about, you just said about Japanese, what do you think about people that come in and want to get like a Japanese character or something? They have no idea like what it means.
It's like that's just the entry level. They're kind of like at a loss for what to get. So that seems like a pretty neutral. It's almost like getting a crucifix. Like a lot of people will get like a crucifix because they feel like if their parents see that, it'll be less offensive to them.
Really?
Yeah, like like they're like, but like it's a crucifix, and so it would be different than getting something
2 hands praying.
Something that's not from their culture, but
a lot of that stuff too is tribal shit. Is like what family you're from, or what your place is in the family, or whatever. Like the Maoris, they do it so that they can identify each other from afar and things like that, and see who's friendly and who's not, and all that kind of deal.
And when Western artists have to be really careful when they start to elaborate on other people's stuff, because
stuff and all that.
You should either just not look at it at all and just kind of try to make some stuff up and have it be obvious that this is made up. It's just a design.
Right.
Because if you start borrowing from other stuff, you're kind of like telling a story.
Well, that's what I was
kind of an
say.
incomplete
It is a story. It's like the Yakuza or whomever. Like all those things mean things. Or like when I look at like Russian prison tattoos, like
those are very
that
heavy.
shit
That's
is
super
descriptive.
Heavy. Yeah,
you know what
heavy.
I mean? And how much time do you spend studying that, or has that been an interest of yours ever?
Yeah, I mean, my wife's from Russia, so I'm pretty well, learned on that style, like the thieves' world is what they call like all the tattoo stuff. That's why Russian tattoos are fascinating because they're really political, which you don't really see. Like you don't see like gangbangers in LA with like political tattoos. It's just like the street, or it's like the location.
Maybe
but
Obama.
But they don't have the same kind of depth and significance. But the Russian mind is a very it's a very sophisticated, tool. Like Russian people aren't lighthearted about anything. Everything
they don't seem it. Not a real jovial group.
Well, it's interesting because I've been with my girl now for 3 years, and I was at a point to where I spoke Japanese fairly well. When I was doing jiu-jitsu, I was like knew a lot about Portuguese, and I was very comfortable just kind of jumping into conversation with the words that I knew. And with Russian, I'm like really hesitant because they don't have the same kind of mindset to like accept. Like they're like, if you can't speak it perfectly or you don't know, they don't want to joke around with you. as you're trying to fumble through their language, they're just kind of like talk English. So I'm not as easy to just look foolish. Whereas in Japan, I didn't care. Like, I would just right,
or somebody be nice and helpful, and they go, "Oh, look at him trying."
Like, haha, like I didn't mind looking.
In Russia, they're like, "There's no try."
They're like, "No, don't just speak English. It's cool. I'll meet you halfway."
One of our teammates, she had a fight in Russia. Mm-hmm. Keith fought in Russia too. There's a place I guess you want to get paid and then get out of.
Right for
away.
sure.
It's not like a super.
No.
Engaging
you could get
place where they're like, "Oh yeah, great, you won here." Like, it's not like that very much. But she won and she was sick. And she shit her pants when she was in the cage still, and then they got rushed out right away, right afterwards. No locker room. Get into the limo, and they go to like the president's palace, I want to say. Mm-hmm. So she's still in her fight shorts, and she's just got sweats on over, and she ends up leaving her underwear in that condition in the palace bathroom, which I think is a great story to be like, I left my panties,
shitty drawers.
Putin's palace or whatever.
Did she shit herself from her illness? Or?
No, she finished. Finished the fight, and when she was on top or transitioned or something, everything
just lost
let
it
loose.
Yeah.
Wow,
that's
my favorite Russia story. And then they say vodka. Is that true that it's the word for water?
Well, I think they don't drink water over there. They drink. It's
not allowed.
No, I think it's legal, but I don't think it's part of their culture. It's legal to drink water, but I don't think it's part of their culture. They drink a lot of vodka. Yeah.
Caviar and vodka, that's the deal.
It's good shit.
I never got it. It just tastes salty to me, salty and gooey.
It's good with you have to have the other accompaniments, like the blinis and all that shit.
All right,
it's really good.
Crazy, man. What do you think? Is there a lot of shops that open and close, or if you're invested in a tattoo shop, are you pretty deep in it? Because like the way you're talking about, like a lot of dudes that are kind of flash in the pan and all that.
Yeah.
And
like for instance, like if they sold this building, which I have a pretty good, the brotherhood, the shop is the brotherhood of the artists. It's not really the location, because if we had to get out of here, we'd most likely go to another location, figure something else out.
And your guys that you've worked with for a long time?
Yeah. They've been with me, like the guys in that room. Like I've had 3 guys that have been with me for over 10 years.
Crazy,
yeah, so,
cool, man.
And it's when getting artists that are secure, that aren't like all about their own ego.
Right.
And also, if they're at a certain point in their life when, like, owning, like we're talking about having a business, like, owning the shop is kind of a lot of smoke and mirrors. Like, it looks a lot more profitable and a lot more glamorous than it is.
Guys that have been around 10 years are like, I'm glad your name's on the shit. I just work here, go home.
Just peace out. Yeah. Like, when you're a free agent, you just show up, collect your money, and dip. And then you don't, if there's a plumbing problem or something, you're not being called at 2 in the morning. So I think when you have
that somebody acted shitty, and then you've got to take
you got you're paying the insurance and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So the freedom to not have to feel like you have to ask permission to go on vacation is probably the only perk of being the boss.
Right.
That's because otherwise, because I still come in and tattoo myself and everything. So, being a leader and being kind of like the role model to a lot of the younger guys that come in, that's great. I still enjoy it. But like, say for instance, if we lost our lease here, the shop is not this location. The shop is the guys.
Has it always been this location though?
Yeah, we've been here the whole time. Yeah.
That's kind of the way they move guys out of the cities, right?
Yeah.
Is like the lease comes up and then fucking they're like, oh, CVS is moving in.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Well, this neighborhood is really interesting because my landlord says that she's not, but there was nothing here 10 years ago.
Right.
And now it's hotels and all this kind of stuff. But it's also a lot of businesses that I don't think they really did due diligence in seeing if they were the right business, because they'll just Google hot neighborhoods in New York City.
No way.
And even though it'll be like a gay British underwear company, and they're not really thinking that all they're thinking is that came up as a hot neighborhood.
That this is going to be the new shit.
Yeah, so they'll move in and then move out in 2 months or something like that. Not one person.
So Gavin was saying, Gavin Von Vlack, buddy, and he lives down on 6th, and he was like, cops wouldn't come past 2nd. He's like, there was
back in the day
nothing back then, and he ended up owning a squat out of the deal, like crazy.
I remember the Serenity or whatever where those guys by the park.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right, like a block up from the projects.
Yeah, I think they offered those guys a lot of money to they to get them out of there. They made a deal with those guys and gave them kind of the opportunity to buy stuff for cheap, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a crazy. I mean, New York is a crazy city in that way to me, to where it's like here's this island that's all highly valuable property, but just the crime and parts of it have eroded to a point where it's worthless, and then all of a sudden, time heals it.
Well, New York is also like it's fairly. I don't know. It's interesting because it's so much like where you are, because I always feel relatively safe. But there's neighborhoods in New York that they're fucking
you'd
horrible.
Still feel unsafe in?
I wouldn't want to be stuck there. I wouldn't want to have to walk through there. Yeah, because young kid, like young teenage kids,
is 4, 5, 13-year-olds, and you're fucked.
You're done. You know, like they may not you may not be a mark for somebody looking to rob somebody,
right?
But a bunch of reckless kids. I mean, you're kind of just best off.
Well,
just
kids that you're young, you're poor, and you're looking for fun. Sometimes beating up a stranger is that thing, in a lot of those cases that happens all the time.
Mm-hmm. So it will I guess Bill Murray was saying Bill Murray moved into like Spike Lee's neighborhood, I guess, which is because of Spike Lee being there, it somehow revitalized it. But it was mostly black, still families. And then once all the white people started moving in, the crime was just fucking through the roof. You know what I mean? Because they're
awesome.
Well, and but the people, all of the gentrifiers, they don't even have it's like this is not your neighborhood. Like you're just gonna move in here and offend people, and immediately with your baby strollers and all this shit on the streets that have belonged to this community for forever, you're not really thinking it through. Like you're just thinking because the rent went up that it's somehow safe, and the realtors will tell you anything to get you in there, to get you to pay that fucking rent. They'll be like, no, it's totally safe. It's totally safe.
I think if you had a ton of money and you moved to New York, you want to move somewhere, I would go, where's the cops? And I'm going to talk to them and ask them their opinions about
absolutely.
or something.
Yeah.
They'll probably know what's hot and not in the neighborhood.
For sure.
Well, cool, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Where can people find you, dude?
Just invisiblenyc.com, or Invisible NYC on Instagram is where my work is.
Yep.
And then my personal Instagram is Invisible Sun, like Invisible SON. That's where just a lot of my work, but mostly just my personal shit. So it's open to everybody.
See your motorcycles and all that kind of deal.
Day in my life type of shit.
Yeah, killer. And Keith Jardine, you can find at Keith Jardine 205, of course.
I got you. I think I follow you already.
Oh yeah, I'm looking for you.
I think so.
Now.
Killer. Well, thanks a lot for listening, guys.
Tait, thank you very much.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Troy, for joining us.
It's been awesome, you guys. Thank you.
Opening up your spot to us.